بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. First of all, I want to thank all the organizers of come from the Institute of Objective Studies in New Delhi for such a great and unique conference to remember a great thinker, Prof. AbdulHamid Ahmad AbuSulayman. Also, I want to thank also IIUM and Kulliyyah of Revealed Knowledge, AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, Kulliyyah of Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences. Today, actually, my presentation is very simple, and I hope, inshallah, within 15 minutes, I will not exceed 15 minutes to review my ideas. Actually, once I come from sociology department, and when I come to present this type of a presentation, I want to, what do we call as transfer. Ideas come from Prof. AbdulHamid AbuSulayman to be in a practical way. So once we come in sociology to understand, for example, the goal or the objective of human thought, human social thought, directly we have what do we call as a kind of conclusion. We want to reach stability to the society. How can we handle social issues to reach what do we call as stability? Once we come to look for what we call as Islamic thought, directly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we will reach what do we call as istikhlaf, succession. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات لنستخلفنهم في الأرض. That means we want to come with this type of dignity. We want to run the life of this human being. So once we come to look for the social science or human thought comes from sociology, we have to understand first this is a science. We have to agree this is a science. And I will not talk in details about it, but we have to understand the original sociologists talk about this type of sociology. It's similar to physics. It's similar to chemistry. It is a science which has what do we call as two elements, which we call it as theoretical perspective, theoretical frame, and what do we call as empirical frame. And we have what we call as research methods. So once we come to reach any issue related to the society, and we come to understand it deeply, for example, any social illnesses, any social problem, for example, we start as sociologists first to explore. We want to explore such social issues. It doesn't matter. Maybe it is positive, which can enhance this type of stability, or also negative. And then we come to diagnose this type of social issue. Then we will go to address. Then we come to to conclude what we call as a kind of a prediction. If we solve this issue, what will happen? If we can't solve this issue, what will happen? So this type of what we call as a process has also a formula, which starts from what we call as observation, and then we will go for experimentation that we will apply this type of science. Then we will come to compare all our results to see, could we, for example, address this type of issue or not? If we manage to address it, that means we manage to reach what do we call as social order and stability. That means done. The issue is done. That means we managed now to save, or what we call as to solve this type of issue. And this is what all sociologists come to tell us. We can reach, by solving these social issues, we can reach that level of stability. This is why once we come to look for from Islamic perspective and human perspective, we have one conclusion. In a human thought, we will reach stability. In Islamic thought or Islamic religious thought, we will reach what do we call as succession, or what do we call as istikhlaf. So both come with the same or similar what do we call as results. But now, once we come to look for these two types of thought, we will look for not all society members are educated. That means not all the society members will play a role to reach either stability or to reach what you call as this type of succession. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, and sociologists are also tell us, once we come to reach this type of conclusion, stability or succession, that means we will focus on the elite. We need a group. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَوْلَا نَفَرُ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٍ. That means we will not focus on all people in the society. We need a group, and this group will come and they try to be educated, and they become elite, and then they will create this type of what we call as the change. This is why in every society there should be a group of educated, which we call it as elite, and they will create this type of stability, or they will create what we call as succession. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to go with what we call as now read. And this is actually the first ayah comes from the Quran. And this is what we call as the science of Tawheed. Once we read, once we look, once we think, once we learn, once we can conclude or come with this type of conclusion, how can we create this type of a change? And from here, I can come to the vision of IIUM. And once we come to look for IIUM vision, we have to understand IIUM vision was based on this type of principles. Two principles. If it is religious, that means we will come to succession. If it is, for example, human thought, that means we will come to what we call as stability. So based on this, we come for IIUM vision, which creates this type of what you call as an ummah, or a principle to serve the ummah as a whole, under what we call as Tawheedic paradigm. How can we run what we call as this type of principles, and finally come with what we call as this type of stability to the society? And this is why, if you look for IIUM, you will find many beautiful concepts, like, for example, Iqra, Amana, Khalifa, integration, Islamization, and many of these what we call as concepts. Now, we will go to what we call as the efforts of AbdulHamid AbuSulayman. What did AbdulHamid AbuSulayman do during his time? AbdulHamid AbuSulayman and his efforts were focused on developing a class of scholarly elites. How can we create this type of a group who can make this type of changes in the society? And this is actually one of his contributions to the what you call as, not to IIUM, no, to the society as a whole. And I hear many of our colleagues mention about the crisis in the Muslim mind. And I totally agree with this type of book. And I want to show you how do I translate his ideas to be practical on the ground. So AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, when he came to look to the situation, the status of the Muslim Ummah, he found Muslim Ummah actually face a lot of challenges. And one of these challenges come in their way of thinking. And once they come, for example, to apply, for example, or to start their educational journey, it becomes like a commercial mission to save themselves, not a kind of solving societal issues. So AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, when he came to categorize those who become educated, we started to look for philosophers, thinkers, researchers, graduates, and holders of official certificates. You will ask, can we reach, for example, and make our children, for example, or students to be philosophers? Little bit difficult. Thinkers, little bit difficult. Researchers, this is our target. What do we have today in our universities? We have what do we call as graduates. And those graduates, they become receivers of knowledge. That means they will go to school, or they will go to class, and they will sit down, and they will understand the material. Then they will go for final exam, and they will move from one stage to another stage, and then they will receive their certificates. But once they go, for example, to real life, they are receivers of knowledge that they can contribute to the society. Still, we have one more category. What is that? Holders of official certificates. But those holders of official certificates, they don't understand even the content. but they go and apply and finally receive what do we call as a kind of certificate, but without knowledge. And this is based on now my what we call as research. When I committed or when I conducted my research about Muslim elites come from postgraduate level, I found them in my publication, many of them poor research skills. They don't understand the vision of IIUM, no cooperation, competing each other. There is no trust between themselves. And the motives that ask them or motivate them to come for education is a kind of materialistic, what do we call as motive. And this is actually what comes from those students. For example, once you go, for example, PhD students, listen to what do they say, for example, in my research and my publication. For example, they have poor research skills. I have studied for 2 years, but I still don't have any idea about research skills. They don't have. After 2 years from PhD, still they don't know how to handle what we call as research methodology. Look, for example, their understanding about what we call as ummatic vision and mission. Look here, for example, they will tell you, I work at the university. This is a PhD student. I work at a university back in my country, and I offer a full scholarship to PhD degree. Then I accepted this type of offer for what? Because it is important for my future. That means he needs to, what do we call as, to support himself financially or his position. That's it. Once we come to look to this type of what do we call as results, you can see, for example, another result, competing relationship, and there is no trust between this type of elite. There is no trust between those elite. There is no trust, no mutual trust among postgraduate. This is not me. This is a respondent or participant come as a PhD, and he tells me how does he suffer once he go, for example, to deal with what do we call as other students. Now I will show you systematically those students who come to be leaders tomorrow. And this is not mine. This is what we call as the plagiarism test. See how do our elite come to complete, for example, their, for example, thesis. You will find here, for example, 32% plagiarism. Look here, 51% plagiarism. Look here, 94% plagiarism. This is what we have today in our, what do we call as, educational institutions. That means the students come to look for a certificate, but without content, So once we have this type of what do we call as results, I came to look for AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, Professor AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, and how does he implementing, or how does he handle his own ideas when he came and told us about what we call as crisis of Muslim mind. So implementing the ideas of Prof. AbdulHamid AbuSulayman to real life. And I want to show you now this type of what do we call as a project. We came in a project in sociology department, and we start to say, no, we can't work with a group who will become elite and lead what do we call as their societies with this type of results. AbdulHamid AbuSulayman, as I mentioned to you from the beginning, asked us to go with what we call as a group of elites.
Sir Iyad, please conclude now.
Just 2 minutes.
Yes.
So once we come to look for this type of a project, we will go directly to show how can we prepare our students to be researchers. That means we can't make them philosophers and we can't make thinkers, but what do we need them? We need them to be researchers and to avoid to be just graduates and what we call as holders of official, what do we call as certificates. And we managed to come with this type of what do we call as the experiment. And this is one of the books that published. And if you look here, it's Khalduniyat, comes from Ibn Khaldun, published from undergraduate level. That means students are capable now to conduct research and publish this type of research officially in journals or in academic journals. And these actually, what do we call as the academic publications come from undergraduate students. So I will conclude, if we want to build a society and if we want to create this type of stability or succession or istikhlaf, we have to follow the steps of Prof. AbdulHamid AbuSulayman for what do we call as creating a group of elites, which is possible today to create or to reach this type of stability. Thank you so much, and I'm grateful to give me this type of a chance to complete my presentation. Thank you so much.